Today we have the 25th of February, 2000 of the 14th year of January. My name is Vadim Zaporozhtsov. Who am I? I am the rector of the International Open Yoga University. Yes. So this is the third part of our Sahasrara chakra seminar. The third part of the first part, because of course we don't. There will be a lot of purely practical work on the next one. Now we have more theory, and then the next one will be more practice. So, wonderful friends. During your samadhi, did any questions come up that should be answered? Or not? Yes. Let's discuss such topics. How can we install them with our thoughts? Or how do we install a bot with our thoughts? Not really. So, you see, this is a very serious underlying reason for everything. Just imagine you have no thoughts. You really came tired, hungry and angry. Although no, hungry, angry, this already has at least some thoughts. Yes. You came tired, frostbitten, sitting like this. You know what bondage, it doesn't matter. What to go, what not to go. It's like this. In this state of extreme inertia. And ask you, what's in your head? You will say, yes, I have nothing in my head. Empty. I have samadhi without an object. In what condition? Yes. And imagine a different situation. You are walking through the jungle. Suddenly, an angry tiger runs out and follows you. What are you doing? Strekacha Autodova. You don't have a single thought in your head either. The way the adrenaline is over the edge. The clarity of consciousness is extreme. You all are so, you know, distinguished by intelligence and ingenuity, such agility. You forget about everything, about fatigue, not fatigue, about everything. You're clean, empty in your head, you're running away, right? Here. These are fundamentally different states, you know. That is, the state of samadhi is closer when a tiger is chasing you. And you have no thought, but with full clarity of what is happening, than when you look up from below. You see, through certain emotions there, and so on. That is, as if from below, that is, as if consciousness through the lower chakras highlights the mind as if from the bottom up, which is empty. And anyway, is he there? Or on the contrary, you took off in the highest flight and look down at the mind in the hope that the ray of consciousness will be reflected. Come back alive, and you will understand yourself. But if we restore it with willpower, then he sets it firm above anyway. But then, how to work with thoughts? This is a delicate question, friends. Yoga was danced in the morning, danced in general. But such a Patanjali. Where did it come from? This is an uncle, apparently not an aunt, who wrote such a digest or very briefly, in this version of Twitter. Aphorisms on Yoga. Very short, difficult to understand, concise. In particular, he defined yoga as follows. Chitta Vrittini Ratha. From a formal point of view, when you are asked what yoga is, you can make a smart look and give a definition. Cheat is not lying to Ratha. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3. Ha. Now it remains to understand what it is. So, in fact, it is a state of samadhi without an object. Someone's lying, not a mouth. Well, that is, how would you lie? These are thought forms, such vortices. Whirlwinds. Lie, whirlwinds. In general, Sanskrit is very close to our roots, you can understand something there without translators. So, chitta. Here there are some nuances, why it is very difficult to understand the Tenyali Suras, for example, by modern psychologists. And by Oriental scholars, they tend to translate it as the termination of consciousness modification. That is, as if consciousness could be modified, that is, changed, and it is necessary, therefore, to stop this business. But everything is quite complicated. Consciousness, well, the essence of consciousness, it can't change. It can only highlight. But then such an image is given. Imagine the rays of the sun illuminating, say, a piece of red glass. These rays are colored red. A piece of blue glass is blue. And so on, and so on, and so on. And just imagine, this glass changes these same as his. Yes, a light filter. And it seems that your consciousness is changing. Or another example. Remember we talked about rivers on the water. We say, oh, the rays are playing. Really, right? Yes, the rays do not play. The rays from the sun both departed and came. And already reflected from the pier, they begin to play. Reflected in different directions. And generally speaking, the rays from the sun, as these kilometers went, there are millions of them in an airless space, and they came. This is the same situation with our consciousness. It, as a matter of fact, is not modified. The part of our mind that our consciousness highlights is being modified. And here is the task. Yes, and this is directly related to the thoughts in Rita. And so the term someone in Rita is not Ratha, strictly speaking, means to make thought forms cease to form in Rita. And, accordingly, to avoid this illusion of changing consciousness. After all, in fact, your consciousness is unchangeable. You are now sitting here in a state of wakefulness, listening to me, I hope. I hope you'll go to bed tonight. You'll wake up tomorrow. And it seems like your consciousness is changing. A state of wakefulness in a state of sleep. Or you had some wonderful dream. But in fact, nothing changes. It's just that consciousness highlights everything that is happening on the surface of the mind. And there, indeed, in a state of sleep and dreamless sleep and age, they are already changing. Here you need to stop this process in Rita with all sorts of tricks. Or in Sanskrit, the beautiful Russian word iroha. You understand, right? Well, as it were. It's not born, you know. Yes. And this is the definition of yoga danced. But Patanjali, in fact, systematized all the known knowledge at that time and brought them into a single one. Into a single text. In other words, there were many different schools in his time. Someone rested on one thing, someone on another. He took all of them and looked at them and brought them into a single, as it were, a single course of perception. That is, or in another way, darshan, contemplation or cognition. Yes, they danced, I saw yoga like this. And we have a concept. Because if you start saying yoga, they will ask, what do you rely on? If you say that someone told me something there in the Indian village, you will not be taken seriously, let's say in scientific circles. But if you rely on the Yugo from Anjali's corpse, yes, this text is the same. It is dated, well studied, and it is equally recognized both in Yuga circles and among scientists. Here. But in fact, there were many other texts of other schools. In particular, Patanjali pays very little attention to Nayama Yoga. There is nothing about sexual practices there at all. Well, if there is one, indirectly there, very indirectly, allegorically, but not directly. At the same time, as there are other yoga schools where, let's say, about Nayama Yoga is one of the main ones. And so on, and so on. That's why it's possible to say what yoga is like this formally someone's retiniravka. If you understand what it is, you will be right. Indeed, you stopped the modification of thoughts, and your consciousness saw itself in the reflected surface of the mind and realized itself. Here. So, where did we start? I'm aside. A personal question. Yes. Mikhail Lavrinov, Almaty. Our physical body and body's subtle causes. According to Patanjali, is there also a thought form on the surface of the booth? So, our subtle causal bodies. No, well, in short, we pushed our bodies, including the physical one. Is this also a thought form on the surface of the booth or not? No, not friends. Everything is more complicated. Not, of course, you know, with which one. Do you remember our previous Poaj seminar? By the way, I am sending you to the Aina Cha seminar. Of course, we can say that this whole world is painted on the canvas of the mind. And all that we have not seen around us is, in this sense, a materialized thought and form. This is, well, strictly speaking, how to look at it. But for you, well, the system has been reaped, first of all practical for you. After all, you are more interested in what kind of bell-bottoms you have drawn on the surface of the mind, forcing you to do some things. And others, how to eliminate them. And in this respect, the situation is as follows. So, the substance of the mind is certainly made of the finest combinations of consciousness, energy. Like everything in this existing world. Which one? What level of bodies does, say, the substance called buddhi belong to? Very hard. Why? Because only one thing is known, again from the same Patanjali, that she is in a state of sattva, unclouded, which indicates her secret proximity to the first levels. But on the other hand, if we are talking about a physical person, then we understand that our mind is, in fact, a combination of both the physical carrier, say, our brain, and subtle and causal structures. And it's quite simple to make sure of this. That is, how many experiments were done. If you have, roughly speaking, physically well, to influence the brain in some way, then with all the ensuing consequences. This is all going on. Therefore, the factor of, as it were, the reality of matter, it does not come down to the fact that we invented this world for ourselves. And here is a very serious mistake, in fact. Equally real or unreal, if you will, both consciousness and energy are equally real. Moreover, in fact, consciousness and energy are manifestations of what is called dust. That is, if there is, you know, a gradation of reality, which is more real, which is more realistic, consciousness or energy. And such a dispute is, in fact, philosophical. Here I still found this very piece of all these Soviet, Marxism-Leninism, the history of the Sipsu. It was very tough there. Matter is primary, consciousness is secondary. Everything is clear, tough, period. God forbid, you will say that consciousness is primary, matter is secondary. Well, it depends on what the years were. Stalin's, you should have more fun with your brains. This? Already in the last Soviet years, it was softer, but the result would have been the same deplorable. You would have been kicked out of every organization you could. That the whole ideology was built on this in the future. Matter is primary, consciousness is secondary. Being determines consciousness. We are building communism now. We will build good conditions. Tomorrow all people will be good, kind, honest. That was the ideology, friends. You understand, don't you? We paid for this ideological mistake with a huge amount of blood and other things. Another mistake. Primary consciousness, matter is secondary. Or there is no matter. There is my consciousness that sees Maya illusion. There is no one at all. There is no world, there is no me. Even this hallucination is so walking everywhere. This is another mistake, for which it is no longer us, but the Indians who have paid a very good price. What if there is no peace? Generally cool. All methods are reduced to methods of working with the consciousness of the mother. And the other extreme? Question. Well, but where should this poor peasant go? So what is primary, what is secondary? The answer is as follows. This question doesn't make sense. It is equally primary as energy and consciousness because it is a form of manifestation of pranas. Here is prana, it is closer to reality, it can manifest either way. Well, what is more real than pranas? Your higher self, the source of prana. Well, what is more real than your higher self? Absolutely. But on the other hand, this is again a meaningless question, because there is no difference between you and absolutely. That's the philosophy. Therefore, when all these methods of working with perception, working with methods of consciousness, they can lead you into the wilds. Usually men love it, but poor women suffer. Usually a man likes to be clever, he has concepts, everything is Maya. Go away, old woman, you're Maya. Here. Yes. And he's in concepts here. And this is the strong side of the male consciousness, the strong side. But it can be lifeless, dry. And God forbid a girl, if you have this potential husband as your husband there, here is such an awareness. How true people are, oh, well, they are all right, but they have everything calculated, thought out, they are such psychologists. Here they are. They, girls, will tell you everything about what you are, only you will be bored to death with them, or rather sad, right? Because there is no life. On the other hand, when on the contrary, you know, such an energetic woman, but I apologize for the slang without a tower. In general, she doesn't have any structure of the world in her head. Just not. There is another extreme, no less destructive. That is. And you know, here again, we referred here even in Ananda Lahara, there to compare that reality is husband and wife. Energy and consciousness living in harmony. So is reality. We cannot reduce the work with thoughts only to the work of consciousness. Energy is needed. Why did they dance this whole set of Hatha yoga exercises? If he doesn't. If we work only with consciousness without energy, we throw away all Hatha yoga, and that's it. Why is it needed? But no. Patanjali says that without a step of Hatha yoga, you will not see anything. Here. What is the strength of his, in general, darshan or system? So, well, I'm pretty out of the way. Any more questions? Yes, please. Here, they were talking about this purest country, where there is a personified God, and this. Not. No, there may not be. So I'm sorry, maybe it's wrong. Buddhists do not have any personified gods. When you come, catch a Buddhist, catch him and ask, man, where is the Absolute? Do you know what he'll say? And there is no Absolute. And you ask him, where? Do you know what he'll say? And there is no God. And you ask him, and my higher self is there. Do you know what you see? And you don't have any higher self. No, it turns out atheists. There are a lot of people who accuse them of being atheists. Indeed, they were considered atheists for a very long time. No, everything is more complicated there, of course. It's just that when they say that there is a void there and so on, they, roughly speaking, appeal to the over. A superstate for which there is no, well, as it were. Here even the concept is absolutely this word. The concept of the higher self is a word, and the absolute and the higher self are higher than words. They really liked the term emptiness. And as a result, well, he liked it so beautiful kind of. Thoughtfully and about nothing. You understand, right? And it confused a huge number of people and still does. Well, you start saying, yes, here you have reincarnations, yes, the Dalai Lama died the 13th, the 14th was born. And what was born, actually, if I went? Well, they begin. No, yes, very beautiful things begin there. And this is the Dharma stream, and this is it. Or some others. And here is the mind, there are imprints of the mind to convey. But it turns out like this. One did it, the other solves it. Or not. Or it turns out that, well, in general, why this one? And why was it necessary to search for a long time then? And not to take the first one? You will be next, Dalai Lama. Because there was no soul there anyway, and there is no soul here. What's the difference? You got caught first. Here. It is clear that they are accused of this very harshly. But I must tell you that, of course, these accusations are groundless. Of course, everything is very good there, everything is very correct. But there's just, you know them. They immediately jump to this level, that, first of all, the principle of the higher self and the principle are absolutely identical. Absolutely inexpressible. So what can we say? We can't say anything. And that's what's confusing everyone. In other words, you know, extremes are a very high philosophy and extremely primitive, they seem to merge. Unfortunately, many followers don't understand. At one time, I even used the axiomatics of yoga in this regard. I have a sad story, in fact, I should even share it. I once gave the axiomatics of yoga. A good course is like this. And what did it lead to? This led, in general, to a tragedy. You know, here I am once again convinced that there is nothing good or bad in this world, is it appropriate or inappropriate? Yes, there is nothing good with impunity. I have already paid for the axiomatics of yoga. In what way? A student comes to study at an open yoga university. He studies the axiomatics of yoga, says, aha, I understand. Then he gets, let's say, two Buddhists, to someone else Tantrists, there and other istas, who themselves do not really understand anything at home, but they understand a student with axiomatics. And he begins to revive their teachings. Without him, these teachings themselves would have died quietly, peacefully long ago. You know, everything has to have its heyday and death. And then it turns out, we pour blood into them. And how? There's one who understands, he Bhavat, infects thousands who do not understand. Those who do not understand begin to flog nonsense. This nonsense is spreading among the seeking people, and the seeking people cannot understand. That's not the docking. On the one hand, stupidity, yes, that there is no type of higher self, but someone is reborn, right? The system should fall apart, but it lives. And I'm already, you know, starting to be afraid whether to give an axiomatic. Do you know how many people I lost? Into Buddhism. In some, well, very different, but we have some bizarre things. They discovered something there. Someone liked the technique, someone liked the party. Because, well, there are strengths there, it's impossible to say. And they, the most interesting thing, so would they, if they did not have the axiomatics of yoga, they would push them, like explain, who is reborn if there is no higher self. But as it is, they already seem to understand and do not push anyone. And they use only the best practices. Yes, there is a good meditation about Nayama. There we ran, jumped, had fun. There are different jokes everywhere. Here. But thousands of people around they don't have. Therefore, in fact, live for a century, learn for a century, as they say. And you will still pay for your good deeds. Here. Yes, but we left it aside. We're pretty much out of the way. Next. Continued. The one who daily performs the threefold duties, meditation at this place, receives an undiminished reward. The one who once bathed in this place enjoys heavenly happiness. His sins are burned away, he has become one with a pure mind. In such a state, he would be clean and unclean. And in whatever state he would not be clean or unclean, having performed ablution in this place, he becomes a saint. At the hour of death, let him perform ablution in 3 veins. By thinking about it, he will achieve liberation. In all three worlds, there is no mystery greater than this. That's it. And here, look, it's already here that such yogs of dying are called with a capital letter. That is, there are yogs of dying such as to either avoid bad karma or acquire good karma, or use this intermediate stage here. But there are absolute yogs of dying. And indeed, many have used them. That's why they say that a person doesn't die there. Here is Sivananda. With you, Sivananda is the greatest Ejin. Half the world reads his books. With us is Sivananda Saraswati, who lived, therefore, in Rishikesh. And where is Sivananda with you? Mahasamad left. Well, for real, probably went to Mahasamadhi, because the figure of such a person. Although from an external point of view, what happened? There was a living person, he became a dead one. With you, Vivi Canada, the same situation. Sometimes, well, in Tibet, by the way, they loved the following thing very much: that they could dissolve their bodies after death by the power of yoga. But this is, roughly speaking, well, how to say, a trick to reassure those who remained alive. But it is not an absolutely necessary component to dissolve your body in a rainbow at death and achieve Mach itself. It's a question of how you lived before, how much you cleaned up the elements of your body there. They become unstable. And as soon as you die, they just fall apart. Here. And no one cares. But the question is that at the moment of death, if you, roughly speaking, transfer your consciousness to three veins, to this point, the door of Brahma, the top of the head, then in fact, there is, such a spontaneous situation. When under the influence of the energy of collapsing structures, there are no thought forms left on the surface of your mind. And it is very easy for you to transfer your consciousness towards your higher self. Or, on the other hand, at the moment of leaving our world, when it separates. Well, as it were, when prana comes out, separates from the body, you are free for a while. You have a higher self, you have free prana that is not conditioned by anything, by any karmic clues, by any ideas. That's all, we've already lost the body. This lasts an extremely short time. Literally, according to some texts there, literally hours lasts. I didn't use it right away, that's it. In Tibetan yogas, it is called clear light yoga. Here at the moment of dying. That is, there is such a clear light yoga in general, but the highest realization is when you die. That is, you died, and for a while, you have the opportunity to see your higher self. Because there is a process similar to samadhi described by Nathanyali. But, as a rule, we are not up to it, we are not directing our consciousness there. Well, there are a lot of factors due to our ignorance, and we are more afraid of it than we strive for it. And they are forced to be born again. But if you have grasped this state, that's it, you have come out, you have reached the highest. But to do this, you have to prepare for this all your life. Meditate, meditate, meditate every day. To do hatha yoga practices there and so on, so that at the moment of death, you can take advantage of it. Then yes, we can say that after death, you went to Mach itself. Well, more precisely, well, as it were, it does not contradict. In other words, this is not a hoax. Because now, when you talk to the Hindus, every second Mahasamadhi goes there. Who is there an ordinary person left there? That is, there are too many saints there. India lives too badly for so many saints dying every day there every year. So, it turns out not all of them were. Or some other reasons unknown to us. But in any case, the technique, here it is. Transfer of consciousness to the top of the head, exit. The door of Brahma. Or this door of Brahma passes through the center of the Sahasrara lotus. It's already Sahasrara. It is no longer the intermediate stages that we have talked about, but the truth of Sahasrara. This is where we will start at the next seminar. Because, please note, we have practically not touched the Sahasrara chakra. Actually, we haven't even touched the point in Bindu yet. Next. It should be kept in the greatest secret. If the mind was concentrated on Brahmaranhi for at least half a second, liberation from all sins comes, the highest goal is achieved. They asked how long he had to concentrate. Well, I have a question about half a second. Saint Egan, whose mind is absorbed in contemplation of the Brahmaranka, becomes. Not by time period, but why is it called half a second? Probably, some other one is given in the original. We need to raise this original, see what it is. The holy mind is absorbed in contemplation of Brahma, becomes one with me, and attains Siddhi. Here. And now on. At the next seminar, we don't have time for anything at all, because this topic is, once again, difficult. A large number of meditations are also given, where you are encouraged to concentrate on the top of your head. Very strong meditations, very strong meditations. Here, and among other things, you can just approach these methods of the observer's consciousness. He is a man who has known Brahmaranka, my beloved in this world. He overcame his sins and acquired the right to liberation. By spreading knowledge, he will save thousands of people. The gods can hardly attain this knowledge. This is the most priceless treasure of the Aegeans. This mystery of Brahma Ranhi must be kept in great secrecy. The mystical moon. There is a yoni in the middle of the Sahasrara. Her moon. Let the sage contemplate it. Such a one will be loved by all the people of this world, gods and adepts. In the middle of the forehead, let him contemplate the milky ocean. Then let him meditate on the moon, which is in Sahasrara. The moon is the source of nectar, and it has 16 Kola degrees of increase. Let him reflect on its purity, constantly so, practicing, he will comprehend it in 3 days. Then all his sins will be burned. The future lies with him. The mind will be cleansed, and even if it commits 5 deadly sins, they will be destroyed in 1 moment of such contemplation. Any position of the stars and planets will be favorable for him. Nothing will threaten him, and success will contribute to him in everything. The powers of Hichari and Bukhari are revealed to him by the contemplation of this moon. The warrior becomes an adept, and he becomes like the mystical Mount Kailasa. All right, let's stop a little now. Unfortunately, we already have very little time left. So, friends, this area is really not so simple from Aina to Sahasrara. It is practically not described anywhere. If there are these descriptions, they are extremely mysterious. And before. So let's come to the end of this seminar, a few words about what we started talking about at the previous seminar at the Aina chakra. This is quite a serious knowledge. And it should be understood. It is connected with the Bindu points, and with the importance for men, first of all, to study sexual yoga. The fact is that I'm going to miss some things now. No, it's just enough time to explain them in detail. The thing is, what happens to a man? What is the role of a man, yes, in life? Well, what is it? Become a father of children in the first place. Then the question arises. Very well. Poor woman, got pregnant. 9 months. 9 months. Overcoming toxicosis there, hormonal restructuring of the body, bears a child, then gives birth to it. Also, in general, for amateurs, it means this. It's a feeling, isn't it? Here. Then, after giving birth, everything is rebuilt for her. Begins to breastfeed. That's it, she is no longer her own mistress. This is especially the shock of the first child. Before that, you lived one life, then everything changed for you, and the man is a scoundrel, he does not understand. Nothing has changed for the man. Well, yes, my wife gave birth to a son, well done. Yes, that's it. That's it. Here. And it would seem, yes, well, that's why there is such a serious, ferocious burden on women. And the guy got off easy. Well, you think there, well, kissed there, had sex, slept in the morning, and that's it. And where his contribution is, strictly speaking, there in this very thing, in the development of mankind. And it seems that there is some kind of inconsistency. Or maybe you can do without men there at all. Somehow. Yes. Here. But, friends, the load on a man at the birth of Ada's child completely coincides with the load on a woman. Only if for a woman it is more a factor of energy, sensations, for men it is more a factor of consciousness. The point is to reproduce the seed that will bring the right soul into your family. Everyone certainly strives for worthy children and teachers to be born in their family. No one wants anyone to be born there, from whom there will be a problem. So, the male factor, in addition to the genetic one. Well, indeed, some part of the hereditary information is transmitted there by the seed. There are still quite closed topics, I'm going to touch on them in passing now. This is the transmission of the vector by which the soul of the unborn child will come to this material world. And, strictly speaking, almost 100% depends on the man, which soul will come. That is why in all these orthodox societies paternity was determined by the male line. Moreover, the marriage of, say, the same India of a man of a higher caste with a woman of a lower caste did not cause any objections. But God forbid, the marriage of a high caste woman with a low caste man, oh, it could not be good. Up to the point of murder. Why? Because a man basically determines which soul comes. Seed formation is an extremely mystical, mysterious process. In all schools of yoga, including those to which these treatises relate, this is one of the most closed topics. Therefore, in full, even I do not risk saying who knows what. But in general terms, we must imagine the process. Consciousness, male consciousness, somehow enters into the structure of a man, is covered with the thinnest. The thinnest shell of energy. And this point of Bindu then, roughly speaking, travels through all the structures until it forms the seed of a man. Therefore, the loss of semen for a man was considered madness in yoga. Well, imagine, yes, that's how much a woman suffers, and that's such an empty waste of semen. It is for this reason that serious yoga schools have such a recommendation: do not waste the seed in vain by all means. Spend only on the conception of the birth of children. But in order to, and there is the next point, in order to keep him inside a man, there are also complex mechanisms there. It is necessary to have sex, but it is right to have sex without losing your family. This is a separate, quite serious yoga that needs to be studied for a long time. To make it so that a man gets all the pleasure from having sex in full, but the component that indicates the vector of the future soul to come at birth, it was not lost. And the more a man accumulates this vector inside himself, the stronger he will be as a man. So, this is the theme of other yogas, in particular, such yogas as the yoga of the triad, which includes yoga of sexual union, tantra yoga, yoga of falling in love. All these three yogas are based on generic yoga. These are separate courses, separate training, separate everything. Right now, we are even fighting special courses to make an open Tantra Yoga university and run it separately. Because this is a very difficult topic, it is difficult to interfere with it, even with ordinary yoga. Here. So, now on. What is the role of Sahasrara and structures above Aina in the formation of male semen? Straight. Depending on the degree of consciousness of a man, he will be able to bring souls with a similar consciousness into this world. Then, there is the mechanism of formation of the seed, or these bindu drops. This is due to the so-called bindu point, the point of thoughtlessness in the center of the head, which is higher than Aina, but lower than Sahasrara. And, roughly speaking, working with it will allow you to very quickly approach the ability to control thought forms on the surface of the booth. That was the question, right? And how is it there? So, what to do? So here is one of the methods. Therefore, a huge part of yoga practices is associated with proper work with sexuality. In addition to hatha yoga, meditation, mantra, and so on, no one will be able to bypass sexuality. Therefore, I ask, this is a delicate topic, misunderstood, but I ask everyone to take it into account. If you have even the slightest blind spot in your spiritual path, and most often it is a blind spot in your sexual life, you will have problems through it. You should be cultured people in all matters and understand this topic. So that's why, let's say, in all spiritual teachings, what was insisted on? On celibacy sometimes. Why? You don't know how to have sex yet, but it's better than that. Be patient. Here? But on the other hand, if you know what to do and how to do it, it turns into a powerful push to control the thought form. Well, in general, to reach the level of consciousness. The other side, friends. If a man loses his seed, it's very hard for him. More precisely, there is such a situation. If he loses the seed more than necessary, there is some kind of limit. Then it is very difficult to succeed in yogas associated with the yogas of consciousness. Very hard. The next moment. It should also be said about him. If a man is not responsible for his seed and directs it to the wrong places. Let's say he went to a brothel with a prostitute to have sex. It so happened that he was not injured. The prostitute got pregnant, went and had an abortion. Question. Who is to blame for the murder of a child, and on whom is karma? So, everyone always thinks, here she is then, on a woman. The woman had an abortion. No, friends. Negative karma equally falls on the shoulders of both. And on a man in a more sophisticated and incomprehensible, non-obvious form. They stop believing him. Roughly speaking, he deliberately drove the baby's soul down the wrong path. Imagine you meet a man who sends you to the den of robbers, where you are killed. Will you believe this person next time? No. Karmic mechanisms have also been made to prevent a man from coming to power in the future, who is so, well, as it were, promiscuous where to spend the seed. Roughly speaking, he will never become a politician, followed by people, a military commander. And even a normal businessman will not become. That is karma. In the same way, well, women have their own for their part. Therefore, these questions are not enough, friends. And if you study at our yoga school, then you should remember that our yoga school is a generic yoga school. where there are very strict principles. Well, as if your behavior. You should by all means avoid abortions, divorces, and other things that are associated with such, well, as if negative. We must do everything we can to support children, families. Children are sacred. The return of a sacred debt. Everything about sexuality should be studied by you and applied meaningfully. So, unfortunately, very often, this is from my practice. People come to me, well, roughly speaking, people say, give me a secret practice there to someone, a super duper. Well, not a secret such power. But I give practice, after a while it comes and works. No. What is it? Did you do that? And this? No, you're supposed to fly through the air, aren't you? And somehow, it's not always the tongue that turns and asks, how do you actually have sex there? If you do you lose the seed or not? Well, somehow in our society it is not customary to discuss these things. But this is a critical moment. If a man spends his seed, no matter how much you pump him up with practices, he, roughly speaking, ends up. You understand, right? A play on words, right? Whatever you give him, it's all for nothing. Here. And first of all, it is connected with these structures. The Bindu points are above Aina, but below Sahasrara. We will talk about this at the next seminar. Unfortunately, our time has come to an end. And before we finish our seminar, then I am addressing you to this. The fact is that we used to put seminars in open access, but this led to the fact that everyone stopped going to them. Therefore, seminars will be made publicly available no earlier than a certain time. Notes. So if you were all here at the seminar and paid for it, I want you to have, well, video recordings. Well, you never know, to reconsider, to learn something in a new way. So let's do this. So I need a piece of paper. Write your emails. And in the future, as soon as we post it, I will ask that you. Well, now you can do this on YouTube. A link is sent to you. Anyone with a link can watch, but everyone else can't. Because otherwise we won't make ends meet. Because, well, yes, everything clings to everything, you have to pay for everything and so on, so on. Therefore, I ask severely, be kind, a piece of paper, and who will need it, who will need the recordings of this seminar, well, in the very near future, as soon as we process it, please leave your emails. Leave your emails, because he will not go into public access. At least for a certain amount of time.
Let's, who is in a hurry, write immediately on his leaf, and just put it in the center here.
Or you can do the following. You will send your email to Savitri. Or does it not want to? But it's better to write, friends. It's better to write now. When you come home, you will forget everything, it will fly out.
Who has a piece of paper?
Now on? This applies, first of all, to those who watched us on the broadcast. Please go to the website less than Earl greater than. Find a head start of reviews and, please, write a review on this part of this seminar right now. Please. It will be such, advertising on the one hand. On the other hand, there is feedback. That is, mass. Please. Here is a seminar after a seminar, 50 people are connected, 1, 2, 3 wrote a review. But this is ugly, incorrect. Next time. It's simple and the universe will do the same to you. And I ask everyone present also, please write seminars, what is clear, what is not clear, what is important, what is not important, and so on. So that in the future it was possible to adjust the work. It's best to do it now. The second part of this seminar, I do not remember when it will be, so it is necessary. It will exit. Well, it will be later, after the exit, of course. So, I'm with yours. Friends, let's do this. Now Mikhail will conduct one meditation on the top of his head, and, with your permission, I left you a little earlier. So, Michael, please. Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's sit down straight. In any comfortable position, the main thing is that the back is straight. Straighten your back, neck, stretch the top of your head to find out up. We relax the body. Everyone's body is supposed to be tense today. Now we are going to do not just meditation, but also make jars so that our energy, which is at the bottom, begins to rise a little bit upwards, or rather completely to the top on the astral. When the energy rises, it will just be easier for us to be aware of this area, what is at the top. For that, you know what? To begin with, let's try to make the lower muscles weak, the muscles of the perineum. Now for the first time, let's just squeeze them, strain them. Well, it turns out the lower part, and right now even the slightly lower press should strain. Thus, we begin to lift up this energy that is below and direct it. It shows here that we want to raise it up, strained and relaxed. We focus on relaxation, because most often no one relaxes the muscles to the end. We will feel several such layers of muscles inside there. Strained. Strained, strained, relaxed. But also do not overdo it, so that they do not get sick there later. Strained again. And so, in theory, everyone who is straining right now should have a little clarity in their head.
Uncle.
There may even be some kind of buzz or such a pleasant feeling on the body. And let go, relax. And immediately, the body relaxes by itself, it flowed. That's great. Now what are we doing? Now we take a pleasant breath, the way we want. Here. And on the inhale, we make a delay. We make this mula jar, and raise the tip of the tongue to the sky, and swallow it. We rest right on the sky. The further we swallow, the better. That is, the language, it turns out, should be so tense. Kikari is wisely called. It also raises energy up. And now, did you feel the Daki Chali Mudra? And now we do the following. We take a breath such as is pleasant to us. Exhale. On exhalation, we pull the stomach inside as it turns out. There is no need to overdo it, we do not put pressure on the insides of anything. We just pulled ourselves up, made a mule jar, and through mudra. The top raised the tongue. And our whole energy, it will go up in a column. We make the delay as pleasant as possible, and then we relax everything again. And again such a delay. For some, of course, the chin goes down, it is not necessary to lower it right now. Then we will lower the energy flow downwards and upwards. And Kichali is wise, we just direct him to turn in the first, to the top of his head. We try to catch this pressure with the top of our head slowly appearing in everyone. Some may have a squeak appear. Some are just pressure. Yes, some may shake a little. We try to concentrate all our attention on the top of the head. Now you can, if you don't want to take such breaths anymore, it's hard to delay. Just let go of the breath, relax it, and also pay all attention to the top of the head. And we imagine a lotus or some kind of light, rays of consciousness that come out of this head, our head. But the easiest way is to draw a lotus that begins to open petal by petal. Everything is being pulled up from us from the bottom up to it, as if it is rising. We don't lower our tongue. And now we are trying to find a state where we would not have thoughts, at least they have been reduced as much as possible. Here it should be somewhere on this, or on a very superficial inhalation and exhalation, or between inhalation and exhalation. You see that there is no thought there. Well, that's great. We return our consciousness to the hall, lower it down. We open our eyes. I think that's it, the end. Don't forget his feedback. That's it, thank you.